think I'm going to join y'all mid pedal
Tomorrow. Okay.
by the time you get to that big downhill.
Perfect. Is there a big downhill?
Yeah, it's a big downhill.
It's a big downhill?
Big
Fun.
downhill. It's like a sawtooth. It's like bang, 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 bang. Fall off a cliff. Slide grade, like the end of the day.
Nice.
The rest of it's
That'll be
like
fun.
just a gradual incline, kind of steady.
Okay. Look at this. I'm gonna fix that camera just a moment. You know. Oh, why not make it better if you can? All right, everybody. Hey, thanks everybody who's watching the recording of this, because there's not very many people live on the Zoom part right now. But if you put your camera on, have questions for us, we would love to answer those. This is on day 5 of the We the People ride. Day 5 of 67, mind you, that this is the current crew. Now, over the next 5, 10, 15, 25 days, these people are going to be added to. There'll be more people who will be joining us as we go. So each of these weekly check-ins, you're going to have some additional people that you're going to have a chance to meet. A lot of ways you can stay connected to us. WeThePeopleRide.org, spot number 1. So if you haven't already been there, please go there. That's a place you can make a donation. I don't know if you know this, but we're going to make some very special awards for donations tonight. $50 award, $100 award, $500 awards. So if you make $50, $100, $200 reward award. Yeah, so you get something if you reach that level. Like we're going to give you a gift, donation gift. Is that a better way to say it? So we'd love for you to ask some questions and tell us about this. So we'll get to the gift levels here in a minute. So these are the people traveling with us. We'll start over on this side and have each of us introduce ourselves. I don't know where you're from, how the ride's gone, what you're up to, what this all means, and so this is a crew on day 5.
I'm Ruben, Doug's son. I have biked every day. The first day I had to tap out early. My legs started to cramp really, really badly. It was a massive climb. I was dehydrated for sure. And my muscles were twitching and I could no longer go. So I tapped out. But it's been great. It's been a huge journey. Super fun. Super hot. And yeah, super excited for the next 2 days. So yeah.
Hi, I'm Wanda Tico. I retired a couple of months ago, cast about for something new, and wound up getting plugged in with Doug here. And the ride so far, I started riding seriously just only about 3 months ago. So while I can't keep up with these two fellas, I have been able to ride about half days. The first day and today. In the meantime, my bicycle was broke for 2 days, but we got it fixed yesterday, and I was able to ride 32 miles today. And we had a funny thing about the total distance so far. 46.5, 40.25. But anyway, all the tens and hundreds added up to an even mile. So 178 miles of pedaling so far.
Unbelievable. Traveled 178 miles on these bicycles so far.
178 miles from the ocean.
That is a good point. Wanda, tell us about our elevation changes that we've experienced.
We got that first day was the big one. We climbed from the Pacific Ocean up into that first little range of mountains in Southern California. We had a total of 3,734 feet worth of hills to climb. Now we went up to that elevation, but that was because we had to go down hills too. So that's a total. The second day was another big day that was 2,976 um, feet of elevation climbing. And 105 was really flat. Today was a little bit more climbing with 371, mainly because we were starting out below sea level this morning.
Yes, in the middle of the desert.
So we had to, go over the ridge to get to the Colorado Valley. So
I'm Doug Paget, giving leadership to this project, and have so far ridden all of those miles every day. Live in Minneapolis, and I'm really thrilled about the chance not only to ride these bicycles, but to meet the people and go to the places that we're going to. So this, we'll tell you more about our schedule that's up and coming. But one of the things I'm reflecting on as we go is that sometimes the space in between is as important as the spaces, as the places themselves. And there's been something about riding on these roads and seeing the desert and seeing the mountains, that to understand our border practices, what it takes for people to get here, the sort of grueling work that it is, you experience that as you travel. And part of our thinking is that by traveling like this, the way we are, there's a little chaos to it every day. We're up, we're moving. We are a migrating people, a pilgrimage. We're people on a pilgrimage. That starts to match what other people have done for centuries, indigenous peoples of this land, and since it's been a country. So we're kind of trying to experience for ourselves something similar so that we can be more open to the experiences that we hear of other people with themselves, their families, or their own history has been people that have been on the move. So anyway, that's partly why we're biking and what I've been thinking about is with that.
My name is Brandon. I am from Chicago, Illinois. I have been driving the truck and pulling the trailer that's filled with bicycles and bike maintenance gear and a lot of other supplies for us, camping gear, luggage, suitcases, all kinds of things. So we're hauling that along to follow the bikers and support them. Every now and then I jump out on an electric bike and shoot some video footage of the bikers riding by. I would say the moments of interacting, the unexpected people that you meet along the way that you just, today I opened up my car door at the gas station and a woman just happened to be standing right there and wanted to talk about her family and she just, wanted to express as soon as she saw the van and saw what we were doing, she just wanted to add in her opinion on it all and her 2 cents of it all. And so, and that's actually really fascinating. And for me, part of the main reason that I'm here. So I'm happy to be here.
Yes, my name's Tim. I'm from Oregon, and I drove every one of those 175 miles, plus about 200 more. So I'm doing whatever needs to be done, housekeeping, driving, taking some pictures, and making sure everything looks the best possible. So I'm honored. I am always amazed at our country when you get to see it and see how diverse it is and how wide open spaces it is, and it's big. And it's an experience I will remember forever.
Two other people that you'll be hearing and seeing the work of, but not so much seeing in our film and photo, are two documentarians that are traveling with us, Kim Sullivan and Clayton Brown. They are going to be making a long form feature film of this project, the people that we're meeting, the process of traveling, and all of that. So one of the things when we ask people to contribute to this, we say, think about what you're contributing to. One of those is to fund our film. So that's the film we're talking about. So you make a donation and the money goes to help make that possible. In fact, if you're really interested in seriously donating to funding the film, we'll have a separate way that you can do that. Be sure to reach out to us. But the other way that your donations are used by us is, we like to say, to fuel our fleet. Brandon mentioned that he drives this truck. It's a Ford Expedition that pulls the trailer. What we're sitting in right now is the vehicle Tim is driving, which is our RV. So some of us sleep in this at night. Other people camp or stay in hotels. And this becomes an operation hub for life when you're on the road like this for this amount of time. So you could fuel our fleet. When you make a contribution, it goes literally to diesel and to unleaded fuel that moves us across the country. The third thing your donations do, well, they feed our faces. See, you're starting to pick up an F and F here. It really does. You have to eat a lot to do this. And speaking of that, one of these chairs, there was a package of muesli here. Oh, here it is. One of our food sponsors is 7 Sundays, the finest in muesli. So if you're considering your own breakfast, that might motivate you to get up and do whatever you have to do.
Good stuff.
Consider 7 Sundays.
Very good.
Good stuff.
Promotional plug intentional. But we really do, like, we have food in here and stuff that we eat and sandwiches that show up and occasional stops at Denny's that can really thrill your spirit, fill your stomach. So if you make a donation, it helps us to make that happen. Also fixing our flats. We've only had one partial flat so far. Ruben, want to say anything about the flat? It was very uneventful, but you know, it's 4 days in, we got a flat.
tire with a really slow leak, so I just switched tires with another bike for now. I still gotta fix the other one, so been too tired to do it. It's been a lot, so I'll get to it.
So chip in and fix Ruben's flat. That's one of the things you do. So you can fix our flat, you can feed our faces, you can fuel our fleet, and you can fund our film. And look, if you come up with another FOF for this thing, we would love it. Go up with as many as you've got. We'd love to hear from those. If you don't know what we're doing at all, go over to the We the People Ride.org website. If you're just watching this on one of the streams that we are partnered with or post to, and you don't know what we're doing, and maybe you want to join us. So we're really serious about this part. We'll be glad to answer questions for those that are on Zoom. And Britton will be watching any of the chat rooms, or any of the chat comments on social media. So feel free to put something there as well if you have questions or comments for us. We're open to people joining us along the way. Some people aren't going to ride at all. They're just coming to help. Other people are going to ride for a day. Some people are going to ride for a week or two. Some people might join us and stay with us for the rest of the ride, which will end in St. Augustine, Florida on November 14th. We'd be totally open to you coming along and joining us in person somewhere. The route is on the WeThePeopleRide.org website, so you can find all of that on there. All right, so Tim, let's tell them about the funding levels right now, the awards, rewards, and payoffs.
Okay. Well, we've got some wonderful things here.
Speak real loud.
This is the new limited edition T-shirt with our logo on the side.
Take it right up to that camera.
Take it right up to the
Yeah,
camera.
just like QVC. Yeah,
Just like QVC.
Yeah.
It's like Diane Gilman. There, or there. So it's nice. And here's the sweet part. Here's the back. You won't see many of these around. So this is says love beyond borders. So this is kind of our little logo message tagline we've developed. We've only got about 50 or 60 of these, so they go really fast. So get that, and then we've also got these sweet little. Oh, I definitely got to go up for this. These little lapel pin. How do I wear
Camera's up at the top.
There it is. Look at that. Boy, it's really weird. I should practice this. Anyway, they're about.
That's what we felt like going over the hill.
Yeah, look, they're about an inch long. Look great on your lapel, your tie tack. Just a little souvenir, of course. That you're supporting
Your backpack or your bike.
Backpack, your bike, your hat. And then last but not least, speaking of hats, you got these. This is really weird to try to work. Trucker hats.
It's not like there.
Here. This is better. So
Love Beyond Borders app. All right, so here's the deal. Look, we appreciate any contribution of any sort, but if you want the
All
pin,
three.
make a $50 donation. If you want the shirt, we'll give you a shirt and a pin for a $100 donation. You make a $200 donation, we'll give you the hat, the shirt, and the pin.
Yeah.
For $200 donation. If you want to make that over time, like you're like, hey, I'd love to contribute, I can't do it right now. When you go to the WeThePeopleRide.org website, the link to pledge it, if you say I want to pledge per mile that you ride and put a cap on it, then you won't have to make that contribution until November 14th when we finish. Or you can say make a one-time donation and you make that contribution right now. So all of that happens there. here's the nice upside. This is all tax deductible. So if you're making so much money that you need these $50, $100, $200 tax deductions, good for you. And we'd love to offer you that tax deduction and at the time. So if you want to make one of these, if you really truly just want the hat and you don't want anything else, I don't know, reach out to somebody running this thing, Mary Beth or Bing or me or Brandon or Tim or Wanda or Ruben, and we'll figure out how you can make a contribution and just get one of the things if you don't really want all of them. But we're trying to scale it up because we'd love to see a $200 contribution. Now maybe you think to yourself, well, I can't donate that much. Well, maybe you have a group of friends that could all go together and chip in. If somebody gets a pin, somebody gets a shirt, somebody gets a hat, one person, you don't tell them you get anything, they just chip in $25 and they just get the good feeling of doing all that. All right, so if you have any questions for us and you're on the Zoom, turn your camera on, ask those questions, and we'll be glad to respond to you. And Britton, do you have any questions on the live streams at all? This would really be something if there were no questions of the Q&A. All right, well, let's do a little Q&As here ourselves. Wanda, Ruben, I'll chime in on my own question. Have you learned something so far, or noticed something, or become aware of something on the ride so far that is sticking with you? Meaningful or, I don't know, trivial?
This is a big issue for a lot of people. It's an issue people care about. And, so it's been educational to get across the other side and see where the microphones were staying.
Speak up real loud.
Oh,
like you're talking.
yeah, I was talking to you
Yeah, I
instead of the
could see that.
microphone.
We're getting very intimate there for a minute.
So no, yeah, we got to go across the border and see the migrant camps where they're waiting for their day in court. Yeah.
Got anything you've noticed, Rubes? While you're thinking of that,
yeah.
let me share this one. We were riding today, and one of the things we noticed is that there are so many kinds of asphalt and concrete. Like the infrastructure that exists to get 178 miles over mountains and through deserts is this wild mix of bumpy and smooth and black and white, like all this kind of wild infrastructure to make cars and bicycles and pedestrian spaces all possible. And I was thinking, we have figured out how to move people east and west, north and south in this country with incredible complexity of infrastructure. And yet when it comes to the issue of border practices and border policy and immigration, people seem to throw their hands up and say, well, it's really complicated. But so is all the land that we just went over. Like, it's really complicated to get over mountains and through deserts, but we figured out a way. So I guess Ruben and I were on a very bumpy road today, and just thinking like this part of the road is almost unusable. It was old, it was breaking from the heat. It was clearly uncared for. And I was thinking, that's what our immigration and border practices feel like. They feel old and decrepit, and they don't work well. That's not how they're supposed to work. And then you get off of that onto a new bridge, and it's smooth and it works the way it's supposed to. And you think, well, good, this feels like it's right. And we need the updates on our immigration and border practices, because talking to Border Patrol, talking to migrants, talking to people who work along the border, everyone just says, yeah, it's really complicated, and that's euphemism for it really doesn't work, and it doesn't work very well. So I was sort of reflecting on that, trying to make some meaning out of this horrible 5-mile journey that we had on that road when it felt like my jaw was going to shake out of my head. So bumpy. Anything you've noticed?
Well, just the cool. When we were biking, I think yesterday, we saw a lot of bottles. I think they're full of pee. We think of the migrants, and I noticed like these mop shoes that they would just take off right next to the side of the road. And it's just kind of cool to see like how they do, like I'm just kind of making assumptions really, but I think this is how they do this stuff. They clean the bottles to not get tracked and wear the mop shoes to not get tracked. And it's really amazing they go the lengths they do to try to live a better life. So
Brandon, Tim, what have you guys noticed?
I,
You've got a
I
totally
noticed,
different.
I noticed it's hot. It's really hot down south. 111 yesterday, 109 today. So it's hot. But I too seriously, it's all about stories and understanding and hearing what people go through, and to realize that people are so desperate that they would make choices that they make, which seem totally ridiculous to us from our secure places. And I think the more you are exposed to that, the better it is. And so that's been a real interesting thing to me, especially when we went over into Tijuana. And it does make me grateful to be an American, but it also makes me aware of the huge responsibility that goes with being that American.
One thing that's really stuck out to me is much like the rest of the country, there's a wide range of opinions from people who live here in the borderlands. What has kind of been interesting to me, though, is throughout the rest of the country, it's often kind of very, there's almost a stereotype where if I think this way, I also think this and this and this and this. If I oppose this one, I also oppose these other things. And we've met a number of people here, and I found it really fascinating that they have this opinion about how the border wall should be, handled, treated, improved, removed. They have this opinion about that, but they might have an opinion that typically comes from the other column about the number of immigrants that we welcome, or about the value of them, the value of people, or about the plight and the difficulty of these people and the reasons that they are traveling from their home country. And so that's all been really fascinating to hear someone have a deep respect for their world, their beliefs, while also having so much empathy at times, or while also being willing to go over and see what it's like from the other person's point of view, in ways that I just wouldn't have expected before I showed up here. So.
Yeah, I was thinking about that today too. We keep seeing people at stores or restaurants or at this RV park we're at or campground, and if they live here, I've sort of I've noticed in myself. I'm like, they think about these issues all the time, right? Like we're showing up and we're taking all this in, and we want to tell these stories. And to all of us, this Borderlands experience is so new. But when you live here, it becomes part of it. So when you ask people like, what do you think, or how does this go? They say, like, unremarkably, their opinions are held, right? Where with those of us who live in other parts of our country tend to think about immigration as a separate subject, where they think about it as an integrated part of life here. And Brandon, maybe you can tell a couple of the stories of the things we heard at night and some of those things. We can tell those stories. But a couple of questions that are coming up on the Facebook and Twitter stream. So there's a few of these. Where are you now, and what's your average speed per mile? So it's a biker with a question. Who wants to tell them where we are right now and how fast we go?
We are in Yuma, Arizona. We climbed over the little ridge and down into the Colorado River.
The Colorado River.
Colorado
Yeah.
River.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all of a sudden my brain went.
Yeah, it's like three states come together. The Colorado River separates California from Arizona. It's a real trip.
And my brain was going, wait a second,
Yeah.
that ain't right.
That's right.
So anyway, and 178 miles, and we're averaging the 10 to 12 miles an hour.
Yeah, it kind of depends. When we were going up over that hill, that 3,700-foot climb, there were 3-mile-an-hour
Steps there.
hills, and then there were 40-mile-an-hour down hills. But we're kind of averaging in the 11, 12, 13. In fact, today, Wanda rides a recumbent, and recumbents sometimes go slower up hills than normal sort of diamond shaped bikes, kind of your typical bike. So the recumbent, we had Wanda go out first. So the slower person leads, which, by the way, just as a thought on leadership, having the slowest person lead rather than the fastest person lead is probably a pretty good idea sometimes. So but what that did was allowed us to stay together, because it's another one of the questions is, are you riding together in groups?
Mhm.
If you want to sort of describe how we're doing it. Right now, it's only the three of us. We had another person this week. We had a couple more next week. We had a few more the week after that. So there's going to be more and more people riding with us. Right now, we're finding our rhythm with just the three of us, and sometimes just the two of us. So, we're sometimes a single file line, and sometimes if we're out in the middle of nowhere, it's just a couple of us that are.
So this week it's been the constraints of time and temperature.
Yeah, because not everybody wants to or can ride in the heat and ride as fast. Today's ride was 58 miles, and it took us 5.5 hours. And so we started early at 6:45 in the morning to try to beat the heat, and finished about 12:30. And that's something we're going to need to do every day that we're traveling through the desert here, which is for the next 2 weeks, because the temperatures get up into 100 plus degrees in the afternoons. So we have to finish those rides in that amount of time. We don't have the freedom to take it as leisurely as we might in other times on this trip. We might be able to take a long lunch or a few hours as we meet people. Right now, we're kind of moving, because I'll say that this week we're going to be in Ajo, Arizona, and AJO is how that's spelled. And Ajo, Arizona is one of the places where there's a group of what are called the Samaritans. They're all over this area, these groups that call themselves Samaritans. What they do is provide water and support to migrants who are in the desert. Just down the road here, we saw a sign that said, humanitarian aid should never be illegal. Here's why people have signs up that say humanitarian aid should not be illegal, is because if you help a migrant in the desert who's having a physical problem, their thirst or their body, you can be charged with a crime for aiding and abetting someone who doesn't have the right to be in this country. Now, that's recently been challenged in court when someone was arrested for this. But the fact that Samaritans, people of good conscience and goodwill, say there are people by the thousands over these last 10 years that have died out in these deserts, we're not going to let them die. We're going to go help them. That is something people have to fight for in this country, has to fight against our own federal government from passing laws that restrict people from helping someone who's thirsty and is going to die in the desert. That should not be illegal, and there's people working very hard to make sure that's not. So we're going to be with some of those people in Ajo. We're going to go out. We're going to hear their stories. You're going to hear a lot of these stories if you keep up on any of these streams where you're seeing this, because we're not only telling the stories of the migrants and their experience, but the stories of the people who are working with the migrants all along the way. So we'll be in Ajo this week, meeting and being with these people, and then we'll talk to you about what we're doing next week when we're going to be in Nogales and Douglas, Arizona, which includes Nogales, Mexico, and Agua Prieta, Mexico, and in some of the shelters and the support places that are there. So it's really pretty incredible what people are doing. And all the rest of it. So anybody on Zoom with any more questions for us? Our plan is to do this every Tuesday night at this same time. So we'd love for you to stick with us on Tuesdays. Come around. We'll do the best that we can to start right on time. Sometimes our schedule can be a little out of our control, but every time that we can for the next 8 Tuesdays after this one, because there's 9 Tuesdays that we're going to be making this journey. And we'll be doing more of a full report with a video every Friday. You can find that on Religion News Service, one of our partners on this, to be putting out our stories and then following along on all the social media and other pieces. So I know we've been trying to have a little fun with the contributions and all. But we are serious about it. We'd love you to feel like you're part of this, and if a financial contribution is a good one, please do. If joining us is a good one, please do that. If sharing this with other people you know would care about it, we'd love to hear that too. So I sort of set you up with maybe a story or two.
Sure. Yeah, I think one of the ones that Ruben and Wanda and I experienced was we were at a KOA campground just a couple nights ago, and I happened to meet the son of the owner earlier in the day, and he was telling me a few stories about how over the years they've, sort of had to clean up the campgrounds. The previous owners had kind of let it fall into disrepair, but they did repair it. So, and so they spent a lot of time and money to do that, but then also they had to take into consideration the fact that there were migrants crossing in this area frequently, very frequently. In fact, sometimes during the middle of the day, he said, sometimes almost at some point every week during the middle of the night. And so didn't really think anything about it at the time, but we all woke up around 3 a.m. in the middle of the night with dogs going nuts. I mean, just dogs sounded like they were attacking each other. And I found out the next morning that a group of migrants had crossed the right next to the campground on the ranch, right next to the campground, where the owner keeps dogs for that purpose so that he can be alerted to anything that's going on his property, right? And so it was just that was just one moment there. And then a few hours later, the next day here, I'm at a gas station and talking with the woman who works at the gas station, and she's telling me about how there's presently, while we're speaking, a migrant sleeping under the diesel tank, and he's been there for a couple nights. And so, this is 104-degree temperatures right now. It's the fact that is surrounding us almost daily in our experience here has been really eye-opening, and just really it's heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking. It's something that kind of a piece of you just like reaches out for something better.
Yeah, totally. You might say to yourself, well, why don't they travel into the country some other way? Just cut straight to it. There is no other way for many, many people who want to come to the United States to work or to support their families to come to this country because of COVID right now. But in addition to that, because of the limits that we put on how many people from each country are allowed into the United States, if you were deported from the United States and tried to reapply to come into the United States, it's a 10-year waiting plan. But at least there you have a number that it's 10 years. If you've never been to the United States before and you just want to come to the United States to work, or you need to flee some sort of pain or difficulty in your own country, the asylum process, it's undefined. Right now, it's all on hold. People are living in migrant camps in Mexico. We met them. We stood outside of one of those camps in Tijuana. We're going to see those camps in the other places that we're traveling to. There's no clear path to getting in. And then if you just want to come in as a normal person migrating to the United States, you don't really even know how to get in line. There is no line. So our system doesn't work. So when people are then making the decision to get here, they then have to partner with some other way to get here. And I'll just say, if you think that that's so outside of your own norms and what you think is appropriate, if you found yourself in strife and struggle and you knew that 200 miles, 300 miles, 1,000 miles away was a different life for your family, would you really just say to your children, well, they won't let us. Those are the rules. Can't get in line. Everyone I know, I think everyone sitting here would say, oh, we're going to do something. And that's the predicament that people find themselves in. So we call this the We the People ride, because the fundamental question is, who's included in the we of this country when we say we the people? We have a long history of including a lot of people, and we have a long history of excluding a lot of people. And this has been an operative question since the preamble to the Constitution, where the phrase "we the people" was utilized, and it's still the question today: who's allowed to be part of this country, and under what conditions and under what circumstances. And we know that wealthy people, we know that people from certain countries are welcomed in. So we know how to do some immigration. Have we found a way to do appropriate immigration? Now, you'd be surprised by the numbers. You'd be probably surprised to know that legal and illegal immigration is down from what it has been in past years, that it's at a fractional number of any time. It is shocking. On our next Tuesday, we'll do a little trivia game with you on some of the facts about immigration. And frankly, you'll likely find them to be surprising about the story of immigration in the past and the story of immigration today. So yes, it's a complicated issue, but it's also a person and people issue. And as Brandon said, I think so eloquently, we can do better than this. I'm going to preach just for another minute here. We met with Border Patrol and they wouldn't let us video record what we did with them, but we know their stories and they met with us because they want us to tell those stories. It was the public relations people. They're very proud of the level of infrastructure that they've built to keep people out. The wall, the tracking equipment, the technology that they have, the training that they have, the trucks, the number of people. We are spending billions of dollars to keep people out. So if you say to yourself, well, what would happen if all those people came in? How would we ever afford that? The cost of trying to keep people out. And then we asked them, how's it going? And they're like, the numbers of people crossing into the country are higher than ever. We're at a highest now, maybe not historically, but in the last number of years, it's way up. So it makes you ask a real question. Is it working? So this is what we want you to get fired up about, want you to start asking, want you to start thinking about. And part of the reason we're going to travel for 65 more days is we want to give you 65 more days where some people you know, some people you might want to like are down here trying to ask these questions. We want to take you along on the journey with us. So, all right, anything else, anybody?
Yeah, I would just say that thinking about the wall, it reminded me today of something I've heard several times in my life, and really applies to many places around the world. But the thought that, brick by brick, you build a wall for safety and security for yourself. But sooner or later, you end up in a prison of your own making. And I think this is another kind of example of that, because our whole idea is to protect ourselves, and suddenly you've isolated yourself from the rest of the world. So the whole idea of a wall can get out of control very quickly.
Tim, that's interesting you say that. We rode by today and saw a prison, and Ruben pointed over and said, oh, there's a prison there. What was shocking about the design of that prison is the way the wall went around the prison and the way that that razor wire hangs in the prison on the inside. You go to the border wall right out that window right there. It's hanging as if we're in the prison. You really do ask yourself, who's walled in and who's walled out right here? And it functions as a story. All infrastructure is a story. It's like you start hanging around your architecture friends, they'll say every physical creation tells a story. And one of the big questions for us in this country is what story does this tell? Like, we knew what Donald Trump wanted that wall to do. He barely built any wall. He was horrible for immigration in all the ways they use the power of the federal government to make things worse for immigrants. But he just wanted more wall and more wall. When people asked him why, he said it's because of what it represents. And every day when we ride on these bikes and look over and see that wall, I just think, I remember a president of the United States back in 1988 saying, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall, and that was a wall in another country that separated the German people from the East German people. You just think, are we going to reach some point where people will glance back at this wall and say, what was this country doing? I think it's just one of those periods that we're going to look at, like we look at all the other hard realities of the story of this country and the story we were trying to tell, and say, wish it hadn't gone that way.
Yeah, it's another physical example of where fear leads you.
Anything else? All right, any other questions on there? Do we have any people with their cameras on that want to ask questions? I'll check the people on streams more.
You look pretty good on the camera, Ruben.
All right, friends, thanks. Thanks for being with us. We'll tap in next week. And if you want any of these fine,
Feliz Navidad.
fancy We the People swag, we'd love to give it to you.